completions, and everyone's always like, what's a completion? What's a completion? Well, a completion is not a new concept. In fact, it was in a book called Successful Telesales in the, you guessed it, 1980s.
And if I have another conversation and another conversation and another conversation every few weeks or months, what will eventually happen is people will begin to convert to being ready as time proceeds, as I do the follow-ups. All right, welcome back to another episode of, I have no idea yet what we're going to call this, but we'll have a cool name. Today, we're talking about completions, aka a completed conversation, and why they could drive a lot of insight and value for your company. As always, I'm Ronen Passar. With me is Reisert. We are the outbound operators. And before we get into this show, this topic, if you enjoy what we're going to say, hit the subscribe button, like, and share any comment or feedback in the comment section below. Ryan, let's dive right into it.
Let's get into it.
Completions. What's it all about?
Let's take a step back. This comes up all the time. I actually just got this question today because we launched the Dial Hard Challenge with Call Blitz, and reps are posting their dials and completions, and everyone's always like, what's a completion? What's a completion? Well, a completion is not a new concept. In fact, it was in a book called Successful Telesales in the, you guessed it, 1980s. This is an exact definition from that book. Let me remind you, this is from 45 years ago, and we're still talking about the same bullshit we talk about every day, right? This is the exact excerpt from the book, okay? Salesperson makes 50 calls or 100 calls, and nothing results from them. He hasn't accomplished anything. His time is wasted. The salesperson's first goal should be a completion. A completion is a telephone call that actually gets through to the right individual. A call that is returned or a discussion with an assistant or secretary does not count. It is this initial call that you briefly explain what you have in a way of product or philosophy. You bring to the individual's attention what you have to offer, and you discover his interests. In some cases, you'll want to make an appointment for a face-to-face presentation. In other cases, you'll follow up with a letter or a telephone call, but the completion is not aimed at getting an order. It is aimed only at finding out whether or not you can proceed with future contacts with the individual. He may say yes, he may say no. It's still a completion. Now let's dissect that a little bit, because it's kind of funny to think about. 45 years ago, the first thing that I see, what does it pop out on you? What's the first thing that pops out?
Well, the first thing is how it still applies to exactly what's happening right now, where cold callers, SDRs specifically in the B2B sales world, are being told to get meetings. In this case, they talked about an order. And the definition of the completion is followed up by that sentence that was like, the goal for the outcome in mind is not to complete an order, it's to complete a conversation or something to that effect. And it's like, yes, this is exactly what we're trying to do in outbound.
Well, but let's take it up a little bit, because I think it's hilarious that in this age of all this data, all this automation, everything's supposed to be at your fingertips. Could you imagine how hard it was to prospect in the East to make 50 calls or 100 calls, right? They were still
the phone book
right. Well, they would just call down it. But the funny thing is, we were still arguing about 50 or 100 dials. That's the first thing that strikes me. And by the way, the reason why people only make 50 or 100 dials is because they can't handle rejection. And it's because, no, I'm serious, they make a 50 dials, they talk to 3 people, 2 of them tell them no, and they stop. That's why they stop. It's not that it's difficult to make 50, 100. I mean, when I started in 2008, I had the desk phone. I would put it against my ear, and I would dial like this, hang up, dial like this, hang up, and I made minimum 300 dials a day. I couldn't click to call. The CR, I'm dialing. I can't. It's slow. Like, you have to get fast fingers, right? And I still made 300 dials a day. It's not difficult to do the dials, right? But they were still talking about only 50 or 100, and they were just going down that list. So that's the first thing that stands out. The second thing that stands out is like this focus, like you said, this focus on, I need to get an order right now. I need to like push them through right now. But the reality is, when we call people, we don't have an understanding of where they're at in the process.
Right.
And this is why we care about completions, because at the end of the day, if you don't focus only on the positive in the sales process, right? Imagine as a sales leader, you looked at your deals and you only analyzed your wins. You only looked at the wins that you're having. You never looked at why you lost a deal. Are you ever going to make adjustments on how do you win more deals if you only look at the wins?
Of course not.
It's
No.
very difficult. We lost that deal because next time we need to do this. We're going to make an adjustment. We need to go create more resources to explain how we're differentiated here. We might go get product features that help us compete against this competitor, right? That's why you look at a deal autopsy. You don't just look at your wins, you look at your losses. It's the same concept with completions. If you look at a completion, you can actually get an idea if you're on track. And if we're looking at the top of the funnel, there's really only 3 levers that you're pulling, right? The top of the funnel equation for success is when you target the right people with the right message in the right channel at the right time, right? That's a sales and marketing equation. You have to win that equation. So with a completion, you actually get science behind if you're on track, because you can actually look at the distribution of your completions to figure out, are we targeting the right people? Are we saying the right things? Are we even in the right channel? And is it a timing? Is it one of these timing things, right? We can see that, because if we take the completions itself and we focus us on the yeses, the nos, the not me's and the not nows, there's a normal distribution we can expect in any given market at any given time, right? Chet Holmes blessed us with this data. It's reported on through Forrester and other reports all the time. You can look it up, and everyone always comes down to roughly the same estimate. In any given market at any given time, about 3% are buying now. They might say 3 to 5%, right? Then there's another 7% that are open to it. Okay? Then there's 30% that aren't thinking about it. And then there's 60% that basically are going to tell you to go F off. They don't think they're interested. No, they're not interested. Okay? So you flip that over, you have a funnel. 10% is table stakes. Mm-hmm. For years, I used to have the 110-1 model, right? 100 dials, 10 conversations, 1 meeting. That was like the thing. That's why I was making 300 dials a day, booking 3 meetings a day. That was the math. Like, I could do that all day long. Now, today's math is a little bit different if you don't know how to work a list properly, but that 10% conversion from a cold call is pretty standard. It hasn't really changed if you're scheduling the right appointments. This is why meetings don't matter. I don't want to take meetings with people that aren't in the buying window. What's the point of taking a real sales meeting right now with someone who's not really ready to move forward?
Well, that's actually, Ryan, the people not ready to move forward. I think we have to double click into that for a second, because understanding one of the other big fundamental truths about outbound versus other channels to drive new revenue. You really only have outbound, inbound channels, and then maybe partner channels. And when it comes to outbound channels, there's one massive advantage and one massive pro, and there's one very real con or disadvantage. The pro is that I get to have qualified conversations because my advantage is I pick who I call.
Correct.
And if I do a good job at picking the right, I target accounts, we sell to people, right accounts and prospects, every conversation I do have, in theory, should be qualified in outbound. So I don't have a quality issue. But what issue do I have? It's what you just said. It's
timing.
Buying readiness, timing. I don't have
timing.
that in outbound.
Correct.
And in inbound, you do have timing, but you don't have quality. So it's the opposite problem, right? People are ready to go now, but you don't know if they're actually good customers or not. You got to qualify them and then convert. So with that understanding, the second layer of thinking is, if that's true, the best strategy for outbound is never going to be short term. 3 or 6 months, maybe not. You have to be thinking 12 plus months, because every person I can have a conversation with will be highly likely, it'll be very probable they're not going to be ready now. Timing will be off. And if I have another conversation and another conversation and another conversation every few weeks or months, what will eventually happen is people will begin to convert to being ready as time proceeds, as I do the follow-up. So said simply, in outbound, it's about making the list, having the conversation, and then follow-up, because it's not going to be the first conversation that moves them forward. But I will likely learn in a completion, where are you right now?
That's right.
In the readiness. And
that's
documenting
right.
that and then following up, that's how you drive long-term, high ROI, low cost of acquisition, long-term high value outputs from outbound, which is also why statistically we see like 2 to 3 times of an increase in activated leads coming out of follow-up conversations. Meaning if I talk to someone and I've talked to them before and had a completion already in the past, my chances of, let's say, setting an appointment or having someone who's ready right now and being in that top 3 to 10% is going to be 2 to 3 times higher than a brand new net new conversation. So if it's typically 2%, it's going to be 4 to 6% of people in the follow-up.
Yeah, that's right. And let's double click into now, if we have a definition of what a completion is, how do we use dispositions to create the science around are we on track and how to stay on top of these things, right? So remember, the definition is we need to get the person we intended to target to hear our general philosophy in the way of what we do and why we're calling them. And we need to get to, he says yes or no, but we break this down into a yes, a no, a not me, or not now. Again, you say in a perfect world, outbound is perfectly targeted and qualified. Unfortunately, people are lazy with the list, and or it's sometimes hard, right? You might be early and you might know exactly who you're going after. And so some of these are not nows. And so we break this down in our operating system into a standard set of dispositions that give us a mapping towards when a connect with an individual happens, is it a completion or not, right? So we connect with someone, they have to allow us to get through the framework that we're delivering so they hear our pitch and we get to a call to action and we get a really strong yes, no, not me, not now, and a why, right? And a yes could be yes, interested in a meeting, yes, activation. A no needs a because, a no because, and that's sometimes timing, that's sometimes fit, that's sometimes personality, there's some things, but it's a no because, a not now because these are these future follow-ups. I'm with another vendor, I don't like you, I'm busy, whatever it might be. At this moment, it's not a top priority, but get me in Q2, whatever it might be. This is where you're going to start to get strategic with your buckets and follow it up. And then a not me is really important. A not me why and not me who. So we get a lot of not me's. Reps, I've been coaching the heck out of this with our all of our SDRs recently, because if you look at the distribution of completions, not me's come up quite a bit. And a lot of times that has to do with the fact of how they're messaging in the beginning, and they're getting too technical, they're getting too jargony, it's not making a lot of sense, and they're trying to, you've probably been in this situation before, right? I'm selling a marketing, go back to the day when I was doing so much of this in the early part of my career. We're calling into marketing, and we have a marketing technology, and when you're young and you're just learning stuff, you're getting directed to IT, and my first 6 months on the phone, I'm like, hey, why are we calling the marketers? We sell tech, and they keep directing us to IT. It's like, IT is not the buyer for what we do. They would be involved in the installation stage of the process and might be a part of the valuation for getting a pixel installed on the site and stuff like that. But they're not the person we want to be talking to, because we're here to solve a problem or go away. And so this not me component, people get pushed off like, oh, you're talking about selling a software, you need to talk to procurement. It's like, no, I don't want to talk to the procurement person. Let me take a step back. You are this person at this company, right? Yes. So you're saying you're not the decision maker, but you have some sort of oversight of this, like in your world today. Typically, we're talking to folks that are doing this, right? So is that something you're dealing with? We talked about this in a later episode. That can reset. That can reset a not me into actually it is me, right? We can have that conversation. We want to start the conversation with you, so that we can determine if it even makes sense to bring to whoever you think you're trying to bring me to. And so not me, why? Sometimes the why is there's a misplacement on who they think you are and why you're calling. And then back to the same completion component. The buyers are getting, I want to be on the other line of how other people are calling, because the buyers are so quick to be like, nope, I'm not the decision maker. Nope, I don't buy software. I can't help you. It's like, no, but you can. You have the problem, right? Well, yeah, of course I do. Perfect. I'm not asking you to write the check right now, right? I'm reaching out because of the work we're doing with people just like you and making their lives so much better, saving you time, saving you money, reducing risk, getting you promoted. That's the story we want. So why? And then if it's a legitimate why, like, listen, man, I don't have that problem. That's this person. Now we have a referral. And so when you use a completion distribution set that we do, we have very clear documentation of the yeses, the nos, the not me's, the not nows that have some segments in, and we can actually look at something like if we're getting not me referrals and we're consistently getting referred for the right reason, the why referrals, well, now we have a targeting problem. I kind of skipped this earlier, right? The levers we're pulling is the list, the message, and the rep. So more often than not, always is one of those three things, but more often than not, it's some combination of, are we targeting the right person? Are we saying the right thing? And then it's follow-up. But list might be the problem here, right? Holy cow, we just learned that we shouldn't be going after this department. We should be going after these people because there's just no problem here. They don't see the value. We've been doing a lot of this experimentation with Factify, and that's a whole part of the disposition science that is driving the go-to-market. The amount of information that you can get in such a short period of time when you don't know is so powerful when you focus on the everything, right? Yeah. Are we targeting the right people? Are we saying the right things? Is the rep delivering it in the right way? But then also now we're getting timing for follow-up.
And I think, Ryan, that's the coolest thing about tracking your dispositions, using a completion disposition and outcome to know what's happening. It makes it easy and clear to diagnose where are we getting stuck, list, message, or rep, aka the caller's skill. And that's a very unique thing when you actually have the data properly documented. And I want to go back real quickly just for a minute to the Chet Holmes buyer pyramid, because a while back I put this together. I just want to share this because I think I was attempting to actually map the two things, the dispositions and outcomes of like what completion outcomes can happen with the stage in the pyramid. And I took a crack at it like this. Is this roughly what you're referring to when you're saying the disposition and the outcome of a completed conversation? The completion will give you an indication as to where the buyer is on the pyramid.
Exactly, right? But we can dive deep into the math of markets and how you can actually take this concept and look at the distribution of these completions. Once you get to 50 plus completions in a list, you can start to use that science to get really, really smart on, are we targeting the right people? Are we saying the right thing? And ultimately, are we building our buckets for future follow-ups? And what we can do to drive the necessary strategy. And I think that would be a great next episode for us to dig in. So if you're liking this type of content, you want to tune in, stay tuned for Monday's show. We're going to dive into the math of markets and how do you take completions and the disposition science to actually know at any given time how we're performing against what expectations should look like versus our current math of sales, and make the necessary adjustments around list, message, rep, and ultimately are we on track for follow-up.
Heck yeah. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. Feel free to drop a comment as well if you have any requests for other topics or feedback for us. As always, I'm Ronen Passar. With me is Ryan Reisert. We're the Outbound Operators, and thanks for tuning in.
Peace.